Hello. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. This talk is called The Thought Exchange. Holding a positive thought requires holding everything that comes with it, or life is often uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. As we go into our meditation, I'd like to begin with one of my favorite prayers. It's called the Welcoming Prayer by Father Thomas Keating. So settle in, close your eyes, and listen to this. The Welcoming Prayer. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me in this moment because I know it is for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for security. I let go of my desire for affection. I let go of my desire for control. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and the healing action and grace within. So, now that we are open and receptive to whatever is, I want you to take a moment and notice your thoughts. Notice what you're thinking. Notice what's going through your mind. Don't try and adjust your thoughts. Don't try and change them. Don't try and soothe them. Don't try and use them for anything. Just notice your thoughts. And we're going to take a minute of silence to do that. Okay, now shift your focus to your sensations. Now, by sensations, I don't mean happy, sad, angry. Those are feelings, which are actually thoughts about sensations. I mean tight, tingly, shaking, hot, cold, calm, itching. Notice what's going on in your body and also notice there are different things, or there might be different things going on in different parts of your body. You might have a headache, but your legs feel fine. Just notice all the sensations that are going on in your body. Again, don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to soothe them. Just sit back for a few moments and notice them. Now, turn back and notice your thoughts. They might be different. They might be the same. There usually is just a parade of them. Just notice them. Thoughts. Now turn your attention again to your sensations. Now, if you would, notice who is noticing all this. There is a you that is looking at your thoughts and sensations. You are not your thoughts and sensations. You are an invisible consciousness located nowhere, untouchable, unchangeable, not physical, within which these things are being experienced. And that consciousness, who you are, is unaffected by thoughts and sensations. If you ask a Buddhist, who are you? They will say, I am nothing, nowhere. You are empty. If you notice, you're looking at a sensation and calling it uncomfortable. Your consciousness is not calling it uncomfortable. You're noticing a thought of discomfort. You are always fine. So your consciousness is located nowhere. It's all accepting. It cannot be diminished or expanded. It cannot be hurt. It sees and accepts everything as it is. It doesn't judge you, and no matter what happens, it's there and always contains infinite possibilities for experience and outcome. There's something else that we would describe in that way. Always there, all seeing, never judging, all infinite possibility. That's something else we've named God. You are your consciousness, and thus you are God. Your observing, noticing, infinite consciousness is God within you. And from this place of observation, complete emptiness and complete fullness, you have infinite possibilities to choose the life you want to live without fear, without danger, with only love. So now, as you begin to open your eyes, listen to Chris and the music team sing this song that I wrote with Amanda McBroom, who wrote The Rose. It's called Choices.
So many chances, so many questions, so many roads to take, so many choices laid on the table. We don't know which ones to make. All the feelings, all the failures, we fight to rise above. If the choice is mine to make, I choose love. Too many hearts all searching for someone to handle them with care. Too many souls so hungry and helpless, believing there's no one there to light the way in the darkness, like the white wings of a dove. If the wings are mine to give, I give love. It's too easy being cynical. It's not enough to just survive. The heroes are the ones who hope and keep the dream alive. The dream of all of the people breathing together, sharing one time and space, searching the eyes of each passing stranger, finding the same sweet grace. It's a simple little miracle we all keep dreaming of. The answer's very clear if we want to make it here. The choice is love or fear. I choose love. I choose love.
Thank you, guys. That was beautiful. You know, as a songwriter, your songs don't exist unless they come through beautiful voices. So thank you. So I choose love. So what is love? Well, it's often said that God is love, not loving, love itself. Not omnipotent, but omnipotence itself. God is everywhere. God is not someone who is over things. Not omnipresent, but omnipresence itself. So it could be said that love is allowing everything to be just exactly as it is, experiencing it as it is, just as in the welcoming prayer and in the awareness that we are the observer. From that position, we can choose any thought and thus have any experience we wish. So, our thoughts create our reality. What we think appears before us in the world. Change your thoughts, and you change your life. We all know this. So why is it that so often we have such trouble doing it? Why is it we take on a new positive thought, and within a week or a day or a minute, we find ourselves back in the old negative thought? Why is it so hard sometimes to hold on to our positive thoughts? We're not stupid, we're not lazy, we're spiritual seekers, and yet we seem unable to apply and practice the spiritual principles that we know are true. We read books like The Secret and they say, just take on a positive thought and everything will be wonderful. And we say, great. And then we try and do it and we have trouble doing it and we find ourselves back on our negative thoughts. About 20 years ago, I created a practice called the Thought Exchange to explore how thoughts manifest, how they work, and even equally importantly, what it takes to take on and stay with a positive thought. And I surprisingly discovered that often it is the positive thoughts that come with uncomfortable sensations and come with what I call protective thoughts, thoughts of lack or negativity. And so today we're going to talk about not only what it takes to choose a positive thought, but perhaps even more importantly, how to stay with it. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions that trips us up when we take on a positive thought is we think we're supposed to feel good when we take it on. In fact, in order to take on and hold a positive thought, we need to be able to be with whatever we feel when we take on that thought. And often, especially if that is a thought we've had trouble taking on in the past, what we feel is uncomfortable. For instance, I'm in show business. Someone will say to me, oh, David, imagine how you're going to feel when you're out on that stage opening night on Broadway. I've done that many times. How do I feel? Like I'm going to throw up. I feel anxious. I feel nervous. It's only because I'm willing to be with that I can fulfill my dream of being on Broadway. So the answer is, why would we feel discomfort and take on negative thoughts when we take on a positive thought? Well, the answer is we instituted this pattern long ago in our childhood, most likely, and the reason we did it was to protect ourselves. So let's say you're a young child and you say, I can do this, and someone slaps you across the face and says, no, you can't, you idiot. Well, the child quickly learns that the statement, the positive thought, I can do this, brought about the pain. So in order to avoid that pain, they make sure they don't take on that thought, I can do this. And the minute they think that, they go to a protective thought, which is the opposite of it. And that thought is, I can't do it. Now, even though in the present day we're not going to get slapped, we're not in the same danger, we probably will feel the same uncomfortable sensation. And if we believe that sensation to be dangerous, to be warning us of danger, we will jump to a protective thought. And then after a while, without realizing it, we begin to live in those protective thoughts. I can write a book. Uncomfortable, I can't write a book. And then we're living, and I can't write a book. I can't have a boyfriend. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. I once had someone come to Thought Exchange, and she said, I'd never met her before. She said, there are no men for me. There's no boyfriend. I can't meet a man. It's impossible. It's not possible. So I said to her, could you just, it must be possible in the infinite universe to have this happen. Can you just take on the thought, it is possible for me to meet a partner? So she took it on and she left. And a year later, she came back and she came in. She said, I'm looking for a job. I can't get a job. I can't find a job. There are no jobs. I was just telling my husband there are no jobs. She didn't even realize that that thought had just moved to something else. So the question is, how does a thought manifest? So when we take on a positive thought, the first thing that happens is we have a sensation. We often don't even notice that, especially in this country. We avoid them, Look at television. Every other commercial is how to dull your sensations, how to not feel pain, how to get away from something, how to feel better. So we have a sensation. And if we can tolerate that sensation, our thought becomes a belief. A belief is a thought we think is true. No thought is true or false. We just choose them, but we decide it's true, and then that is what we see reflected in the world. Now, this is another very important misconception in New Thought. Holding a thought does not make the world happen. We don't say $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, and then it shows up. We attract it or whatever. $1 million is always there. When we hold a thought, whenever we look at the world, what we see is what we're thinking, not anything in the world. The world could be said to be a mirror. When we look at the world, all we see are our thoughts about the world. That's why one person can say, oh, I hate that person, and the other person can say, no, that person is wonderful. They're not intrinsically awful or wonderful. Each person is seeing their own thoughts about them. So when we look at the world, nothing is intrinsically good, bad, here, nor there. Everything, all we see is our own thoughts, and that's very important. So I'll give you an example. I was at a dinner party, and there was a woman there who was going through a really messy divorce, and she was hating her husband. And she said, well, that SOB has taken everything. He has left me destitute. I'm destitute. I'm having trouble surviving. The only thing he left me was the apartment, and I have to sell it to survive. And someone at the table said, what are you asking for the apartment? And she said, oh, $7,750,000. So this poor destitute woman was down to her last $7 million and didn't know what she was going to do. Now, the point is that she was, at first we laughed, but then I said, this woman can feel destitution while looking at $7 million. Imagine how destitute she must feel inside. So we think a thought, we're able to be with the sensations, it becomes a belief, and we see our thought in the mirror. As I said a moment ago, it's very important to know that the world is just mirroring our thoughts, and our thoughts are the only place in which our lives happen. See if you can wrap yourself around there. The only place our lives happen is in our thoughts. I'm looking at you. I cannot prove that you're there. You're in here, in my thoughts. When you look at someone, you're seeing photons on your retina. You're not seeing them. So once we know that we only live in our thoughts, we can then use the world as a mirror and work in the area of our thoughts rather than trying to change the mirror. Think about a mirror. You stand in front of a mirror, you're wearing an outfit, you see the outfit in the mirror. If you don't like that outfit, you'd be crazy to try and change it because the mirror can't change if it only can reflect what's in front of it and can't reflect what's not in front of it. It's like standing in front of a mirror and saying, I am not moving until you move. It can't. It's like the dog that barks at that dog that's barking at it in the mirror. If I'm looking at the mirror and I say, I don't like those fists, I want you to take them down. There's a way to get rid of them. I take them down. In the morning, when you look in the mirror, if you don't like the way you look, you do not put makeup on the mirror. So we are only working in our thought. What you're seeing in the world is an exact reflection of what you're thinking. So if you want something and you're affirming it and you're not seeing it, check what you're thinking and work on that. If you're not seeing it, you're not thinking it. If you are seeing it, you must be thinking it. So when we can stay with a sensation that comes up when we hold a thought, and we can tolerate it, we begin to see the world as that thought. So what happens when you take on a thought that you consider positive and you hit a sensation that you think you can't stay with? Either it brings up a painful memory or it literally feels too painful and you can't stay with it. What we then do is jump away to what I call a protective thought. So I can write a book, choking sensation, I can't write a book. And we take on the protective thought, and although it's the opposite of the positive thought and seems like a negative thought, it produces a sensation that is more comfortable. Now, you might say, why would a negative thought produce a sensation that's more comfortable than a positive thought? So let me give you an example. in my workshops, I often ask people, what is the first thing you need to run the marathon? And people say shoes, training, blah, blah, blah. No, the first thing you need to run the marathon is the thought that you can run the marathon. And then even if you didn't have legs, you could figure out a way to do it. You have to have the thought. The marathon is a mental process. And so I don't care who you are, even if you're the person who wins it every year, at mile 20, you're feeling tired, thirsty, hungry, exhausted, bored. It's very hard to stay with it. If you cannot tolerate those sensations, there's an easy way to get rid of them. You exchange the thought, I can run the marathon, for the thought, I can't run the marathon. And then you will stop. And immediately you will feel less exhausted, less hungry, less thirsty. You will feel better, except that thought, I can't run the marathon, will become a belief, and you will see a result you don't want based on that thought. You will live in a world where you can't run the marathon. The moment you see that, you may jump back to the thought, I can run the marathon, and then you'll hit that uncomfortable sensation again, and you'll jump away from it again, and you'll keep going around in like an infinity pattern. I can write a book, feels uncomfortable, can't write a book, no book. I can write a book, feels uncomfortable, can't write a book, no book. And you will be in that circle. So if you think it's too uncomfortable, you will keep jumping away from it to protective thought and not get the result that you want. So how do we hold a thought that produces an uncomfortable sensation and continue to hold it until it manifests? The answer is, in order to hold a positive thought, you have to be able to hold the uncomfortable sensations and the protective thoughts that come with it at the same time. So the thought, I can ask a person out on a date, might come with a sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, and the protective thought, no one would ever go out with me. You must be able to hold those and ask the person out on the date. The thought, I can make that telephone sale, might come with the pain in your head, and the protective thought, they're going to hang me, they're going to hate me, they're going to hang up on me, they're going to not want me. You have to have those thoughts and move forward. I saw a wonderful interview with Lady Gaga at Yale, and she said, I am depressed, I am anxious, I have physical ailments. I made up Lady Gaga because she can do things I can't do. And someone said to her, so Lady Gaga? She said, I'm not Lady Gaga, I'm Stephanie. I made this up. So you do whatever it is. You are not going to ask someone out on a date without feeling that thing in your stomach. You're just not. But it doesn't mean you can't. I'm not going to go on Broadway without feeling that. The trick is to keep going back to the thought you wish to hold. But when you do that, you don't have to get rid of the uncomfortable sensations or the protective thoughts. You have to see them for what they are, harmless and meaningless in the present. Part of what it takes to hold a positive thought. And go back to the positive thought. My friend Alan Menken, who, won 8 Oscars and wrote all those Disney movies, one of the most productive people I know, said, every morning I pick up my bag of crap and I throw it over my shoulder and I proceed. We have it. As I said, I'm in show business. I perform a lot, and I never go on stage without my heart pounding, my hand shaking, and thoughts like, they're going to hate me. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to be embarrassed. In fact, I'm feeling those things and thinking them right now as I speak to you. And if I couldn't tolerate those things, if I couldn't hold them, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't go on stage. I would never perform. My favorite story about this has to do with my friend Lucy Arnaz. I was winning a Lifetime Achievement Award, and she was presenting it to me. And we were backstage, nervously pacing the floor. She had to go out there and expound on my virtues, and then I had to go out and sing and accept an award, whatever that is. And suddenly she turned to me and said, okay, because she does thought exchange with me, what are my sensations? She said, my throat is tight, my stomach is in knots, and my hands are shaking. And just as she said that, the announcer said, ladies and gentlemen, won't you welcome to the stage the one, the only, the fabulous Miss Lucy Arnaz. She looked at me and she touched her throat. She touched her stomach. She looked at her shaking hands and said, well, hell, I can go out there with that. And she went out and she was delightful and charming and Lucy Arnaz. So when you take on a positive thought, You can see it through to manifestation only if you can be with the sensations it produces. See and include the protective thoughts that come up and keep going back to your original positive thought no matter how you feel. When someone says to me, I want to be a big star or I want to be really successful, I say, that's great. Are you willing to be that uncomfortable? So here's the thing, which we started with. Life is uncomfortable. Let's stop trying to pretend it's not. Let's stop trying to pretend that there's some way in which we could get to the point where, oh yes, everything feels fine, everything is easy. Your ability to have the life you want depends on two things: the willingness to take on positive thoughts and the willingness to be with the discomfort that may come with those thoughts. Do that, and the world is your oyster. You can think anything and manifest anything. Just don't expect to feel comfortable in the process, and don't expect to not have protective thoughts come up. I want to leave you with a song I wrote years ago about a thought I took on, a pure thought held in mind, and how it produced the exact result I desired in ways I couldn't have imagined. It's called What I Was Dreaming Of. Chris?
When I first met you, I knew that you were the one for me. I didn't know how to tell you, but I knew how it would be. We'd live in a house on a hill and spend our days making love. I didn't know how we'd get there. All I knew was what I was dreaming of. And so the days went by and still I didn't say a word, waiting for you to hear the music I'd already heard. I didn't know just what to do to try and win your love. So I didn't do anything, I just held on tight to what I was dreaming of. And then one summer day, no different from the rest, I was walking east and you were walking west, and we just chanced to meet and sat down for a rest. And then your eyes met mine, and oh my heart, there it was. And now we live here in this house upon a hill, and we spend days like this just making love as lovers will. And when I look into your eyes and see them filled with love, I think that God must smile on those who hold on tight to what they are dreaming of. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I held on tight, and I've got my dream
Chris, that was absolutely gorgeous, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was just beautiful. So thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I want to let you know that if you want to know more about this subject, my book, The Thought Exchange, Overcoming Our Resistance to Living a Sensational Life, goes into it in much more detail. And there's a whole technique behind this, and if I were there in person, I'd be leading a workshop. In fact, I do a weekly online thought exchange workshop on Zoom. If you want to get in touch with me about any of this information, you can email me at davidfriedmancomposer@gmail.com. davidfriedmancomposer@gmail.com. So as you go forth from here today, know that it's true. Our thoughts create our reality. What we think appears before us in the world. Change your thoughts and you change your life. Infinite possibility exists at all times, no matter what the circumstances. And the ability to be uncomfortable and not be deterred by either discomfort or protective thoughts is an important part of the process. Thank you and namaste. Thanks, everybody.